7th of Mark's 10 grandchildren, and the only child of Mark's youngest daughter, Karen. It's my privilege to say a few words about this very special woman, Margaret Daniels McTavish Story. Some called her Margie, some called her Marg, or Margaret, or sister, or daughter, or mom, Auntie Marg, friend, and I'm here to remember her as someone who called her Graham. We gather here to celebrate the life of an extraordinary woman who lived an extraordinary life spanning more than 95 and a half years. My earliest memories of Graham were in Bala, enjoying a dawn scone or a swim, picking up sticks for kindling, watching the chipmunks or the chickadees or the hummingbirds, putting out the wooden lawn ornaments as many of us did in our childhood. She taught me how to knit, casting on and casting off, because that's the hardest part. Of course, I also have great memories of going for a swim at their home in Burlington, or enjoying the view from their Dixie Road condo, 2108, or sewing a Halloween costume with Graham in her new abode in Aurelia. She would rub my feet, like many of my cousins, before bed and sing, "Shoe the old horse, and shoe the old mare, and let the old coltie go bear, 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 bear." Or perhaps she'd give you an affectionate little pat on your behind, and being the cheeky little girl that I was, no pun intended, I finally decided to pat her back. She loved her family so much, we were her pride and joy, and now we're her legacy. And she was surrounded by us so often that it wasn't unusual for one of us granddaughters to be called by our mom, or cousins, or aunt's name. In fact, one of my favorite memories comes from Bala about 10 years ago, when my Uncle Bob, who you just heard from, and Graham would recount some old stories. I inherited the title of family historian from Graham. I've got her files and her notes, and I excitedly listened as Bob and Graham recounted tales common to many of us, stories about her friendship with her brother Don and how they'd go dancing. He was low-slung and really had some good moves. Stories of Grandpa Dan squirting the whipped cream all the way up the table after telling Karen that she was too small because she would probably have done the same thing. Or that story that ends in the phrase, "Nobody here but us chickens." Lots of laughter. But my favorite memory from that trip down memory lane was actually a new one that was created that day. And so many of us in cottage country are probably familiar with that radio campaign that was aimed at promoting responsible alcohol consumption. And you bounced it around and tried to figure out what it was, and finally came up with water on the water, beer on the pier. And then my Uncle Bob joked, "Well, where do you drink the gin?" And Graham answered, "Well, I suppose you drink that on the beach, dear." Most of all, I'll remember her positive attitude. As Bob said, her cup runneth over on many, many occasions. She was clever and charming, and always so well-tempered. She was innocent yet wise. Most of all, she was optimistic and positive. I'm comforted knowing that she rests peacefully now, and I'll forever be reminded of her with every game of cribbage that I play, with every chipmunk or chickadee or hummingbird that I see, with every raspberry that I pick, with every bum pat I give or receive, and every time I'm called by my mother's name. We love you, Graham. Rest now.